So we can welcome back Hegle. And Alari. Christian. And we have a new face that actually many of you know, Veiko. Thanks to Veiko, or like he is like the main supporter of this event. So thank you for inviting us.
Check.
Where should I go? Oh, I will be here. So I guess you don't have a microphone because it's here.
That's so sexy stuff. Guys, streamer, one lady, and the lady doesn't get a microphone first.
Maybe that was not sexist, that was the
We are very
opposite
sorry.
right now.
That's okay, I can smile.
So, on the background, there are questions going which have been asked by the audience. And also you can actually vote on those answers, like questions, then we know what to ask from the people later on. So it's gonna like rate, but still like there are 3 questions, so you can be a bit not so modest and ask. So we have talked today about how to influence people with design. What could we do? We have talked about the ethics, and we have touched also the topic what the designers, or not only the designers in any roles, but the people who actually do the work, how they feel. So maybe let's start from that why should we actually talk about that why we think that the businesses and we ourselves should know how the design can influence us. We can start from Egle.
Well, first thing is that you're not going to be that easy influencee. So maybe that's why you need to know how design influences you. But also, if you are a designer, then you have to understand what is difference in between visual design, graphics, and what is different in between interactions and all those other things. So they're not the same things. They influence both, influence people different way.
Maybe just to kind of, that for example, kind of the influence is like the summary of your work process. Your work process is basically that you do the research, you map the situation, you kind of go into the business, then you move into the kind of structuring, you make sense of it somehow, there's some kind of solution, some idea in your head, and then you visualize it. So basically this is, well, I guess this is all outcome is how to influence, you know.
I would maybe also add something here. I think it's really important to understand the value of design, and that's one way to emphasize that is to show that it actually affects people, and that it needs professionals to do it well. So it's not something that everybody can do, because it's, especially with the visual side, it's kind of easy for people to think, okay, everybody can draw, I have also good ideas, and that's true to some extent. But then again, I mean, I can also, I don't know, I could also cut my hair, but I don't do that, so I go to the hairdresser.
But as we work in design, this is kind of what gives us the salary. Then how we could make so that the businesses and the companies who order our services, products, that they would understand that they actually need it. Like what would be the main thing, like how to sell this to them, Veiko?
I guess it's like a big discussion we sat before together with all these people and discussing about how we can explain the value of the design, and it's like a epic question all the design companies have, that is it like if I work for 10 hours with a design, is it worth 10 hours of times the price I have, or is it worth of what customer actually will earn with that design, percentage of that? So that's like a very basic question for everyone. But what helps here is basically actually I think every design company should at least try to have a measurability on the design. So every design company, in my opinion, should at least try to say out loud what's the purpose and what's my goal of success, like what's the criteria for success if we actually succeed the project with the design. So if you actually say that out loud, that already makes you to explain the value of the design for a customer as well, because you actually said something. It's not just the process, it's actually the result which you said before, what's the goal. Why would you actually, I mean, what is the, like, okay, it didn't go so well, or why it went so well? So
we also we are trying to kind of tie this with the users as well. For example, if we are involving users in every step, for example, in wireframing, or in design phase, and visual design phase, and then afterwards as well, if it's possible. I saw that there was one question that what is the first thing what is usually cut from the budgets for us right now is testing, and what is I don't really understand it because it's kind of the most valuable thing what the client actually can measure, and again it's the same topic that how we measure are we successful or not. How you can actually influence design, then this the real value and the feedback comes from the users. And okay, the situation is getting a bit better. That it's in general assumption is that the testing is useful, but still we are quite fighting with the testing. That if we like to test in 3 phases in our projects, in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end, then the realistic way is actually that we can get only one testing session in hand, and then we need to kind of really plan it where we're going to do it, and it really affects our work as well. And then when the client is asking that, okay, how we can measure it, but yeah, come on, but you just killed it.
I can tell you, we have struggling this subject actually quite a long time ago, and we solved it so that basically we said that we don't do any prototyping if we cannot test, because customer is like customer of the insurance company. You know, I buy insurance, but I believe most of the times that nothing happens to me. So sometimes I say, okay, I'm not going to buy this insurance because I believe that nothing is going to happen with me. Well, customers, designer customers, they can say, okay, I hired the best expert I know. And even if I take some of the tools away, I can still trust by guts, they still do better design. And basically, this is really pity, because if you take the tools away, so I'm not that good designer anymore, because you just took a really important step in my process away. So we said that testing has to be in each and every project, and this is not negotiable. So you can negotiate like what we design, how many forms we do, and what, etc., but you cannot negotiate if we do usability testing. Because from the budget, usability testing takes 20 hours per time. So 3 times it's 60 hours if you do it really properly. And this is like really small amount of the budget, because you do prototyping like 2 forms with 20 hours if you do it well.
Like testing is like one part of this whole design process, but what do you think, how like at what level is in Estonia the understanding of kind of the importance of design?
It really depends with what to compare. That in general, yeah, of course, the understanding. Well, for example, right now, the understanding of user experience design, user experience itself, it's like growing. People are understanding this, or not understanding, but they have heard that, for example, that they at least know that I want user experience design, but what is it? Okay, they don't know it, but it's my kind of role as a designer to explain this as well. I must be the preacher of this this field and the topic, and it's my mission to explain. So, but yeah, for example, right now, as I mentioned, that right now we are struggling a bit with this testing thing. So I think this is kind of the next thing what is now coming to the. Let's generalize the client awareness that they actually need it, and it's tied to your result. So yeah.
Okay, but while let's say UX and user experience design is maybe like a newer term to the community, or at least in Estonia, then in graphic design, kind of logos and then the branding, this has been maybe wider already for a while. Alari, how could you comment what is kind of the level of not acceptance, but the level of knowing that why do they need it? Why do they need to have good branding, good design?
Well, it's again, it's I mean, the correct answer would be that it varies. So, and going back to the talk we had earlier, so I think people generally understand the value to some extent, but they might be ordering it for the wrong reasons. So there's actually a feeling that it's an easy fix, that they can cover something up with this shiny outer layer, and that would make their product or service really successful, and that's not true. From our side, it's because in design, as in life, there are rational and emotional aspects, and with the visual side, a lot of the stuff is emotional, and it's really hard to test. I would say impossible, because yeah, well, it's a longer talk and totally different topic, and so I won't go into that. But as I said, there are still problems because a lot of people are looking and valuing more kind of short-term marketing activities more than they are kind of long-term branding or different design fields. So and it's understandable. It's to do with human psychology. It's very, very easy to understand because people want to have instant results. They want to feel the instant gratification, and they don't want to take risks. And they always ask, like, okay, I invest that amount of money into branding, so when will I get it back, and how much will I get it back? And as far as I know, there hasn't been a correct answer to that question yet in the world. So maybe somebody in the audience has read some research or something. So obviously has been done research that, you know, any X amount of money invested into design will come back as double or triple the amount in revenue, but that's very general.
Today, when Egle talked about the influencing techniques, so we understand that the kind of companies need design. But today, when we talked about those influencing techniques, like how to persuade, like when we go to our customers, the companies, to explain them how we actually are able to make their users to like move towards the target that the business itself had, then while we are kind of educating those companies how design can impact people, at the same time we are also educating the users. So if the users find out kind of those patterns or those tricks or those techniques, isn't this actually something that might kind of turn against us, that they want to kind of rebel? No, I'm not going to follow this, join the members of Mobi space because it's red and it's like demanding come here.
Well, people are changing. That's true, never, regardless what we do. And this information is not the secret information as well. Everyone can read the books and read the research, and it's open knowledge. The thing is, the other thing is that quite many people actually think that they are in control, regardless what they know. And they think, well, I need that thing to buy. I will buy it when I need it, and as I bought it, I needed it. So this is like people try to rational things they have done anyway. So we notice things what we want to, and we rational things what we have done and what we believe into. So, well, in that sense, there will be always people who will follow, though.
And we are all users.
I think also it's all like the rebels are always minority. I think. I mean, it's in this like a lower level of pyramid that you play around with. So it's very difficult to change this basic behavior. So I mean, I can bring a very simple example from the other area. But if you go to the store, then there are these chocolates and chewing gums next to the cashier, and it's actually everybody knows that this is there because this is spontaneous stuff that you take when you have this emotional, like a free moment, and you take it from emotionally. Everybody knows that, but I know it from my university. I studied economics. I know, but I still buy this chocolate. I still take it. So it's so lower level of my pyramid that I just do it.
I would maybe add that I think it's really important that we would tell these things to the client because it's I don't know why keep it secret because it's the design business is very much built on trust, because at least this part that can't be measured in specific metrics. And I think when talking about metrics, it shouldn't always be money, I guess. So it could be something else, like that more people like your product or speak good things about it. So I mean, another example from a different field, I go to a dentist. I personally really am afraid of dentists. So and I really like when I'm told what's going to happen to me and what tools will be used. So sometimes looking at our clients, I think they are not maybe in the same position. They're not in a dentist chair, but it might be their first time. We have clients. It's the first time basically ordering design service. So maybe it's not the first, but it's you still need to be open.
You also have to say that not everything works in the same time or the first time, meaning that usually the life is so that you make a hypothesis assumption that this is going to work on my customers then, and then you try it out. You measure, you test, you measure again, you test, you tune. So it's longer processes. There's no shortcuts there too. So you also have to, and your customer has to work really hard to make it actually work. And that's why actually there are not too many companies that are using it. If you see, quite many big companies are using it because they have resources and then the will. But if you watch around, for example, in Estonia, you don't see much of those tactics in use. Well, some of them are, but really high-level tactics are not used because it takes really continuous work and commitment to actually make it work. It's not just like this shiny new thing you can just add.
But have you had experience that you have actually heard user speaking or from your customers that they have felt that this design somehow impacted me or kind of felt tricked or something? It doesn't, if let's say we have made a design, the customer is getting new customers, like our customers getting new customers, so this is like their business goal to get it, but that they actually got it thanks to the design.
Well, yeah, that's was also one, let's say, the bad example from the fast loan thing. That as well, that we we really tackled in our head this idea that actually what we were doing, we were hiding information deliberately to influence like the user's decision. And in those cases, if people feel tricked, then then it's kind of then you feel like shit, and that's why kind of. But again, you learn, but you also wonder, and the doubt in yourself is always kind of is a positive thing, but it can be also a negative thing. But because of the doubt, you also kind of develop yourself, and if you get this kind of information from the user, then you need to kind of make decisions.
I have a situation that I heard a story about something we designed, and this person who said that or told the story, well, she knew that we did this design, and she said that one day she was at work doing her own stuff in a computer, and her workmate was also behind the computer, and once she was like, yes, that was so easy. And then when this person who told the story asked like what was going on, she said like, oh, I bought those tickets, it was so easy, it was so good. And otherwise I wouldn't know that, but this person told me. So I haven't heard any other this kind of stories, but that felt made me feel good. So I feel good about that too.
Well, I guess this is kind of that we mostly work with system what should be on a background, in that sense that the process is so intuitive that you don't feel it, and then you are successful in your job because it's on the background, it's easy, it's you don't notice it, and I think this is the kind of the most higher compliment what you can have.
Absolutely, if you go live and nobody says anything.
No emotion at all. Robots.
But again, if you set the criteria and if you measure it, it's obvious that you don't even need the customer to say you that, but you look at the numbers and see that you made an impact. So again, it can happen this way as well.
Yeah, with us, it happens quite often because it's visual, and visuals are emotional. So you just, I don't know, and it depends again on the things you do. I think redesigning, let's say, packaging it gives a really quick and instant effect to something. And in Estonia, we have this agency called Core who do packaging design, and they actually measure the sales increase of the product after the redesign as well, and so they have the statistics to back it up. But with like identity and larger branding things, obviously it maybe takes longer. But yeah, the emotions are there.
For example, do you actually, how do you measure, or is it possible to measure, for example, effect of identity? How are you, for example?
I said we don't have a system for that at the moment. So
have you tried?
I mean, there's a like a really simple answer to that question. I mean, why would Apple, Spotify, Tesla say not invest that much money into their product and into their brand if they wouldn't think it's reasonable, or and why are these companies worth that much? So it's, I mean, there is a logic there, but what's the exact mathematical formula? I don't know.
But it is possible to measure it at some length. So of course outcomes, but there's quite good technological possibilities right now, like brain waves, skin contents. There are quite many possibilities. Of course, it's not completely accurate necessarily, but if you measure it same way all time, then you see trends. So you see trends if someone even reacted on your design. So this is like a really good first step, right? So
Yeah, but that's you can analyze like one what we call a touch point, like one thing, a website or a banner or something. But when talking about the brand, it's a lot of things, and some of which you don't design, you don't control, and obviously you can tie that you can do surveys and ask people what they think about it, and see if their opinion changes over time, and obviously tie to the company's value if you know the company's business is doing better. So again, it might be to do with the new product, it might be to do a new sales channel, it might be to do with people earning more money in their markets, but it might be to do with a brand refresh they did 2 years ago, and it's most probably a sum of these parts.
Okay, I have one interrupting question. Do you need more light?
No.
No. Okay, it's cozy. Light. Do you need more light? Okay, but you want more light? But then
In my life, or
the light to our lives is about to come. It's actually already here.
yes, will do.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, but Christian mentioned tricking, and Hegle took it to the more technical level. That how can we actually distinguish what is like tricking and what is a good user experience design? Like how can we kind of distinguish between them?
Well, there's also one kind of, in that sense, really classical example that, for example, AK-47 Kalashnikov machine gun, that it's, I should take it from the kind of design perspective as a process, as a functioning design tool. Then it's really effective, you know, and then that's, it's from, it's really functional, it works really well from the design perspective, it's really, oh, thank you. It's,
thank you.
it works, so it serves its purpose. But from the ethical point of view, it also kills people. So kind of the tricking and the design process. I mean, for example, the example from the fast loans. There was a design process behind it. But we knew that we kind of that the end goal wasn't really ethical, but the process is still the same.
Yeah, but actually the Kalashnikov example, this is a very well-designed gun because it was some 68 millimeters the diameter, and that was this diameter was chosen because it goes through, but it doesn't. If it had been smaller, then it would be lost in your body, and that would cause a lot more damage. So it was actually an ethical gun, and that's why it got so famous.
And it works also in sand and water. So.
Yeah, it's a very well-designed gun.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I do not believe into something purely in one side or the other side. I mean, there's no absolute white and no absolute black in design, kind of. Well, the colors are, but the rest of it, it's all kind of gray area. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not, and. I mean, it's like ethics, and you think you do a good thing for someone. There's certainly someone who understands it as a bad thing to them. So, for example, if you make someone's life really good, then there's certainly someone who, because of someone's life was really good, then they are really angry and bad persons. Or want to kill someone or whatever. So anyway, I would say that, well, we are not wise enough to decide, are we designing good stuff or bad stuff? Well, some things are quite obvious, like guns, and it depends on our beliefs. But we cannot say that guns are bad if this is for our protection, kind of, right? Of course, Trump would be happy right now, but anyway, The thing is, there's always like gray areas, and I'm not powerful enough to decide it. And I think I cannot, and probably we shouldn't either.
Also, to make it more complicated, I think, I mean, organizations are actually like not one person. It's not like, especially like we are like about 30 people, and it might be that I have in a specific religion or in a specific my own views or my own experience with something was bad. So I am as a designer might be feeling unethical about that project, but it might be not generic for everyone else in the organization. So it's it can get into so many layers that I don't think there's a true answer there. There's not like obvious unethical projects.
Yeah, because if you start to kind of discuss somebody about ethics, then there's no winners or losers, because even the moral standards are also like different. So you cannot like win or lose.
And but in a personal level, of course, there are like in a business ethics, which is a really old subject. Actually, there's real rules how to test your ethics in a business ethics, and but this is really personal level. You can't really use it in organization level. Of course, I can do my mother test and think about if I would make a decision if I had to explain it to my mother as well, and mirror test and so on. So there are actually rules that I can apply, but they all work only on a personal level. They don't work in organizational level.
Okay, we are in the ethics, so yeah, there are like obvious kind of business fields where we maybe might not want to co-work, but when the customer comes with a wish, please make me this product or this service or build me something, then who is actually the one who should define? This also comes from the like product management point of view, that who is actually the one who should decide what emotions or reactions the design should create like on a user. Like there is a business goal that needs to be achieved, like to, I don't know, sell more concert tickets, but like how the design leads to that, who is the one who should decide? Should we ask a lot from the customer, or should rather the designer like have this creativeness free that I decide?
Well, there's a limited number of, you know, the feelings that you should create when you want people to buy something or come in or buy in something. So you cannot like decide within all the different emotions. There's like some that work, but you need to understand the process, how in you that actually goes, how this process of deciding goes. And that cannot be decided from customer side because, well, they do not necessarily know. They can say that, okay, my image is like this and that please don't go against it. But, and especially I cannot really ask from end users as well, like what kind of emotion I should create on you. So they don't know. Of course, I can ask many other things that help me to design it. And then also create questionnaires and then other things to actually learn from them. But basically, this is a matter of specialists to go through on at some level of deciding this design process itself. Nobody can really, well, especially end user cannot say that I want to feel sad when I buy. Well, yeah. You don't necessarily want to feel sad on funerals as well.
Yeah, but the customer very often wants it, like we should be very sad, even though the one who actually died.
No, they maybe want to have nice nostalgic memories and feeling that it was beautiful, and then this person was really like going beautifully. Of course, they are sad anyway, like nobody's going to happy, but they are not necessarily want to be sad on the funeral.
Yeah, I think I agree here, and want to point out one more thing, that it's I think it's also the designer's job to to innovate and to take risks. So, and this maybe goes a bit against the testing and the very rational side of design, but obviously, as I said, as in life, there are two parts to humans, and because not everything should be rationalized, I believe, because I mean, all websites would look the same, and they almost do already. So, but so there should be risks. There should be things done wrong against the rules, and things. Because then otherwise nothing new would ever happen, and I mean, I think surprise is something that it's really hard to program, so we don't know what would surprise people, and is this a positive or negative surprise, and what kind of feelings that would evoke. So but yeah, obviously you have to keep the context in mind, so where you can do it and how much. So when designing a critical interface, then that's not the place to experiment, right?
But when it comes to like team formation, then and like ethical background, like ethics from the customer, then when you form a team and put designers, and not only designers, it applies to any role, but when you kind of form the team, then how important is that the team members would share these ethical values? Is it actually something that they can decide on themselves? That I don't want to take, like, I am religious, I will not take this unreligious project.
In realistic view, if you, for example, if you work in the agency, and I think there's not really there is a choice, of course, always to say no, but in real life, if the team is formed, then I think the values there are no. I think the real case is actually that nobody says no inside the teams. Just they're trying to kind of focus on the goals, and again, if somebody's really they don't feel comfortable doing this, then you are built human in this way that you are adapting. You are kind of taking you're starting to justify the situation to yourself.
I disagree. I have said no in a team. We had a when I was working in advertising, we had a tobacco client, and I said I will not be on the team. So, but I did the casino though, and a lot of beer.
But in the end,
so yeah, the lines are personal, as Veiko said.
Absolutely. And but in the end, as like a business owner, you want to have most motivated team, anyways, and you do the best to form the team that is most motivated. It's not just ethical, but it's just like if they don't believe in a project as a business project. I mean, you have a startup, for example, and you have experience of the startups before, and you actually know that the survival rate of this startup is lower than average. Then you might not maybe want to put your time in there, and it's kind of unethical to say no, because who are you to judge if our business is viable or not? But it does make a difference in terms of motivation of the team, and if you can, you probably would want to use the people who would be motivated on working with the client, because that actually raises the success rate as well.
Yeah, so it's not only a question of ethics, but it's just we have had projects that one of the partners is interested in, and one of them is not interested in at all, and then it's a tough call. But then obviously we don't put people on the project who don't want to do it.
But usually people don't say no. If there are bigger teams in agencies, for example, then it's also a question of not only ethics, but to prove yourself inside the team, and you kind of look away from certain problems.
Yeah, but you cannot make this decision. This person has to do who is in this team, because the thing is, like, you're not the slave master. You cannot keep people from leaving. You cannot make them to do things. You can motivate them, and you can set the rules, but at the end of the day, they will decide if they follow the rules and if they do what you want them to do. And part of your service is people who smile and are nice to your customers. Otherwise, no customers are coming back to you. So if you force them to do something they don't ethically feel that they want to do ever, then you're not going to have customer, you're not going to have this worker anymore. So in Estonia, it's really short strategy, I would say.
Yeah, the client might not see the unhappy employee, although it's they might only meet the account manager or creative director. But I do agree that it's actually a question of company culture, and if people are given a choice or not, and if it's nice to ask, isn't it?
Yes.
I think it's nice to ask, but I would say something unpopular maybe, but in the end, if it's like a relatively high-paid job and you actually make it look like it's a club of you can do whatever you like, then it's also like controversial that why would you pay the salary if you have then you just have a founding members, everybody is owner of that club, and you do the job, you have the money, and you don't have it. It's a different model, but if you've actually committed to pay a high salary to somebody, then there are compromises. It's not a slavery, but there are compromises.
Sure.
And we do know what is the oldest profession in the world.
Absolutely. So basically, it depends
Designer.
on. Yeah, designer.